We're going to be talking about, well, record cancellations. And while don't be fooled by YouTube titles, there's a lot of positivity behind that fact right there. Inventories are higher, rebates are higher, and actually sales are higher than they were a year ago. But it's important that we talk about record cancellations because that might be your ticket to get a great vehicle. And we'll talk about, what are the great vehicles? How do we know which vehicles will have the best resales? That's a way to save thousands when you go to trade that vehicle in. I know when we buy, we always just think about the new vehicle. We don't think about our trade-in often or enough. And we don't think about what that vehicle is going to be worth when we go to resell it years down the road. So we'll give you a little tips and tricks on which vehicles that are currently getting canceled. And that's actually allowing there to be inventory. And Ford actually, this is happening at Ford, GM, Chrysler, you name it, Chev, Dodge, Ram, Mercedes, even at Toyota. Toyota notoriously very, very low inventory, but the vehicles that are available are canceled orders. And for a while, that's all that was happening at Ford and GM as well. But then once more and more people got their vehicles, well, things changed. And then Ford and GM and Chevrolet and Dodge and Ram, they're also able to send inventory to dealers, not just canceled orders. So the vehicles you see on lots right now, there's this perception on YouTube that they're all canceled orders. And that means that the manufacturers are in trouble and that dealers are in huge trouble. No, it means it's actually a great time to shop a vehicle, to buy a vehicle. We're going to talk about the tricks that we use when we're buying vehicles to make sure we save thousands. We want to save you thousands. Heck, I don't understand why people cancel some of the models that they're canceling. They could be making money, but they're canceling them instead. So that's another way we can save you thousands. And we're going to talk shortly about the Ford GTD, the Mustang GTD. What kind of sales volume? Will you ever even be able to get one? And what is it? It's an extremely fast car that could very well beat the Porsche 911 GT2 around the Nuremberg ring. So that's pretty impressive. The plans to come in under 7 seconds, going around that famously difficult and technical racetrack. Very, very difficult. So we'll talk about that. We're also going to be talking about, don't be fooled by YouTube titles. Could have thought that the Bronco isn't comfortable at all on long trips because the seats aren't comfortable. So Maggie read through that article. She's got some reporting to come back to share with you all because, of course, we're experts when it comes to long hauling the Ford Bronco. We've gone to Florida twice with the Ford Bronco. And the last time we went, we did it pretty much all of Florida.
And if we need to do it again, we'll do it with a Bronco.
Yeah, we would. It was great. So don't believe all the YouTube titles out there. Then we're going to be talking about the Ford Lightning Pro. And really, if you want to be a pro, which Ford Lightning you should order. We'll also talk about Blue Cruise updates and those missing items on some of our Lightning builds, which ones will actually get put on later, which ones you should just give up all hope for. So we'll talk about that and we'll keep everyone updated. We're going to be talking about the all-wheel drive hybrid Ford Maverick. Quick little recap from last week's episode. So if you haven't been following us the last week, you can go back and catch specific episodes on just that. And of course, we do break up our live into mini episodes, but then we do cut out some of the information. Generally, often we'll cut out my rants, which explain often why I'm covering all this important information, because getting the right price on a vehicle is extremely important. It's the second biggest purchase that we make. And just like you don't want to buy a house that is going to fall apart and be worthless 10 years down the road, you don't want to buy a vehicle that's going to lose all sorts of value when you go to trade it in 10 years. A great deal today can mean a really bad deal, a horrible deal later on when you go to trade it in. So we got to talk about that. It's important. Things are getting tougher and tougher to get by. Inflation is up. Salaries generally have followed inflation, but the cost of living has not. The prices of houses absolutely have not. So thank you very much, everyone, for joining us this evening. The WB, Ridgeview. Won't name you all off because we got to get Marine Vet. Thank you, brother, for making it here. I'm sure outside of reviews, Pat will be here, or maybe he's just resting up from a fantastic weekend out in the wilderness. We're also going to be talking about when is the best time of year to buy, and if we have time, a 2024 Ford Bronco build-in price. Lots to cover there. What would now be our preferred model and why? What's the best value? What's the right model for you depending on what you want to do with the Bronco? We'll cover that in a build-in price in this live if there is time. We're both a little low energy.
We never know what Johnny's rants.
We never know what my rants will take up in time. And also a little low energy this week. We're not sure if we're coming down with something, so let's put the pedal to the metal and get right down into it. So this is going to be episode 1. We're going to be talking about record cancellations all across the board. This isn't just for Ford. This covers Mercedes, BMW, GM, even Toyota with their extremely low inventory causing all sorts of problems. Trust me, we all want dealers to have a good amount of inventory. That is a good sign for you as a buyer. It's an excellent sign if they've got vehicles available for sale, folks. And we'll talk about why. This is going down at GM, Chevrolet, Dodge, Ram, BMW, Audi, you name it. Have I forgotten anyone? Porsche is still unbelievably very expensive because they're low inventory. So good luck getting a Porsche, a good price on a Porsche. Chevrolet Corvettes, still low production compared to demand. Horrible prices on Corvettes. 2-3-year-old Corvettes are still selling for tens of thousands of dollars more than that original buy price, which means as a used purchase, they're horrible vehicles to buy used. You're going to pay way too much for them. Really, the trick here these days, if you want to get a great purchase, if you can get a very popular vehicle at MSRP, you've got a great future trade-in, a fantastic future trade-in. So the Ford Maverick, Super Duties, Ford Broncos, the demand is much higher than the actual supply in most regions. And what does this mean? This means these are great vehicles to save you thousands when you go to, guess what? Sell your vehicle, because it's going to happen. We all purchase with the idea of, well, I'm going to keep this vehicle forever. Even I say it, I'm going to keep this one a really long time. Boy, do I ever really love this one. And it never happens. People that generally trade every 2 years will continue to trade every 2 years. That's just
like
not
all the
gonna
time
change.
you said it will be my forever car, and finally 1 year and a half after that you sell it. Forever car.
Yeah. The ones I really truly love I'll keep for a year to 2 years. So Ford Bronco right now is a fantastic vehicle to pick up. And right now, my dealership is selling these vehicles. They've got 3 available. 4 came in, 3 are available at MSRP. But here's the funny thing. I don't understand. Not only are some people not taking their orders when they come in, so that was happening, but then we ran out of people who are waiting for their orders, and it's now mostly down to incoming inventory because, well, when there's no vehicles left to give out to the list, the dealership's still going to get inventory. These are 2023 Ford Broncos. And the same thing is happening for 2023 Ford Mavericks. I don't understand. We've got generally across Ford, you're looking at about, maybe some dealers are as low as 15% cancellation rate, but some are a little above 30%. And it's great that Ford does have a policy in place that really does encourage dealerships to make sure they're making real orders for real people who want their vehicles, because if you go over 30% loss, we've been covering this for 2 years. For a year, this rule's been in place for about a year and a half, 2 years now, and we've been talking about it here on this channel. Ford, I've seen it. Ford does send less vehicles to dealerships that lose more than 30% of their customers. Now, of course, we have record orders in the past. If we go back to 2018, even back to as far as 2013, people never ordered this many vehicles. In the last 3 years, record amounts of vehicles have been ordered because They were low to no inventory. And that's why we have record orders. And with record orders being taken, well, naturally, we'll have record cancellations. So don't be fooled by YouTube titles. It is true. We do have absolute by far record cancellations. There have never been this many cancellations in the automobile history, I would speculate. But in the 10 years I've been doing this, never been this high. But we had multiples more orders. You know, I remember on a
That was
traditional
crazy
year,
too.
I do 3 orders, maybe 4 orders in a year. And now I was doing, let's say, close to 200 orders in a year. So let's say times 50 times more orders. So we could have titled this record orders taking place, but I wouldn't, because it wouldn't be as catchy. And because record orders are slowing down. You know, record orders were a thing of 2022. 2021, people were saying, no, I'm not going to order. I'm going to wait. And then it took a year for most people to catch on. And then more people were saying, you know what? I've been waiting a year for there to be an inventory. And maybe a year ago, I should have listened when someone said, you need to order. That's the way of doing business now. Well, now there's been a shift. There's been a big shift. Marie, you can finally get to sit in cars and test drive them. How does that make you feel?
You're speaking about the Bronco?
Yeah, you can even test drive a Bronco. There's 3 for sale at my dealership, all at MSRP, and that's an absolutely amazing vehicle to get at MSRP.
Yeah. And you know what?
To buy in a heartbeat. Great deal because of resale.
Yeah, I guess I never saw a Bronco in the showroom, and now you have the chance to sit in it to see all the buttons before you buy it. Before, you were not able to do that. And at the same time, for sure, while you order, you have the time to cancel, to have something else at another dealership that comes in and you switch. So I guess now that you have inventory, less cancellation, because you just go out with the car right now. You don't have time to think and cancel.
And some of the cancellations are that. You know, this story isn't as shocking as the title, as almost all YouTube titles. Sometimes they're just completely wrong. Sometimes they're way off topic. But in this case, you know, it's very truthful. There are record cancellations, and like you just covered. Sometimes it's because in the meantime, people came in, sat in a Bronco and go, this one's available? I love this one. I'm going to buy it. And then their Bronco order is gone. And that's peachy and rosy and rainbows for y'all. But please, if you have to cancel an order, especially at Ford, let your dealership know, because a lot of people have this idea of, oh, the dealership's going to be so happy. People write it in the comments. I had some person say they got a Sportage hybrid because instead of their Maverick, and they let the dealership have the Maverick. And the Maverick, actually, they came in pretty much at the same time. They knew they could have the Maverick, and they chose the Sportage. So some people make mistakes. These things happen. I would call that a mistake, because the Kia Sportage isn't going to have the wildly incredible good resale value of the Maverick. Right now, I don't understand anyone who doesn't take possession of their Maverick, because you make money with it.
Speaking of that, Arcubo has a question about that
Yes.
resale value, and you said Maverick. You said, which one is better for trade-in, Maverick or Bronco?
It depends on the region, but generally overall the Maverick is better because it's selling for used for over MSRP. And the Bronco in some regions is still selling over MSRP, and it depends which Bronco. A Bronco Raptor at MSRP, I'd buy that in a heartbeat, even if I don't have the money, because I drive it through a few fields, up a few mountains, keep it for a year, and I wouldn't have any concern or worry about reselling it in a year, when that's normally an average vehicle I'm tired of after 1 month, a vehicle I like 3 months, a vehicle I really like 6 months, and a vehicle I'm just, in love with, generally a year. Both my Broncos I kept for over a year because I've never enjoyed a vehicle that much. I personally would take the Bronco because I really love it, and I don't really care how much money I spend on a vehicle that I really love. I really like the Maverick. I think it's incredible for the price. Absolutely incredible for the price. But I personally would just take the Bronco because I'll have more more satisfaction when owning it. But if we're just looking at dollars, I'd take the Maverick, except for certain special models, because at least in my region, Broncos do depreciate a little. The used ones, after 1 year, a lot of dealerships are asking MSRP for them, meaning they're not paying that on trade-in. And if you go to sell it at that price, well, you might sit on it for a while. And prices could come down with time over with the Bronco. They have our first Bronco. As you all know, Broncos at first were selling for way over MSRP, any model. And that's just not quite the case. Now, that is a beautiful view, and that's the view from my office. And I absolutely love the view from my office. But I want to conclude the idea when I was talking earlier about the importance of the vehicle you buy. Often the vehicles with the best rebates, the biggest rebates, are going to have a lot of that model in inventory. And that is your first red flag to knowing it could be a vehicle that will depreciate a good amount. Now, to figure out if that red flag really truly should steer you away from the vehicle, ask yourself, how long am I going to keep it? Because that's an important question for how important the resale is. The shorter time span you keep a new vehicle, the more important it is that it has great resale, low depreciation. The Bronco has incredibly low depreciation, and some models will still make you money if you keep them for, if you drive them for a year. They'll, generally, I'm not worried. The Bronco, your payments will lower your amount owing faster than the actual depreciation of the vehicle. So if you keep a Bronco 2 years, I'm not worried at all, because I expect that vehicle, even on trade, you don't even take the effort to sell it yourself to get a few thousand more. You trade it in, and I really truly expect that you're gonna owe less than what you get offered for it on trade. Here's the Badlands. They're all great models. Now the Ford Maverick, this is the model we chose, the Wild Track, but let's get over to the Ford Maverick. We'll get back to the model that we chose a little later. But the Ford Maverick, I think, is an incredible vehicle for even not for the price. At $10,000 more at Honda Ridgeline prices, it's still a great vehicle. I don't see this being any worse than a Honda Ridgeline, and I actually feel it's better than a Honda Ridgeline because it gets quite a bit better fuel economy. And its resale is a lot better. And it gives a very comfortable drive. The seat's very comfortable. We didn't take this down to Florida, but we do have Ridgeview, our special moderator here.
He did it.
He did it. Well, he didn't take it. Well, yes, he took it down to Florida, and he took it to Kansas, I think twice. So.
And he said it was comfortable.
Yes.
And he loves the miles per gallon that he does with it. So yeah, that's a good thing.
Usually, I had to calculate things in miles per gallon, because usually it was the vehicles that took a lot of fuel, consumed a lot of fuel, that provided a lot of fun. Hence my term, miles per gallon. So I would equate, and I actually tried to work this out into a mathematical formula where the more smiles you get, the less of an impact of the miles per gallon are, and to try to come out with percentages. I think I had worked it out, but that was about 2-3 years ago now. But there's even record cancellations with Super Duties. So of the last 4 or 5 Mavericks that came in, 2 were canceled. And I don't understand. To me, it makes no sense. 2 Mavericks being canceled. That means 2 people out of 5 said, and this isn't shocking. It's not because, the economy is so horrible that they can't afford it. This is one of the most affordable vehicles in monthly payment, and it's one of the most affordable vehicles when it's really the most affordable vehicle when it comes to fuel economy. And 2 of the cancellations were hybrids. It makes no sense. These vehicles could have been bought, driven for 7 months, throw on 15,000 miles, and been sold for over MSRP. And I think it's too bad. And actually, of the 5 clients, One, it reflects that the economy is hard. They just bought with these high, super high interest rates. And he ordered when he didn't plan on buying a house and he didn't have a mortgage with crazy high interest. And even though he bought a house on his own, and he was saying, things are tough. I just bought a house on my own. I had that down payment to make. Here in our area, they have what's called a welcome tax, but it's la taxe de bienvenue, because the minister that created it, his family name was Bienvenue, which means welcome in French.
That's a little, how can I say that? Sounds like a joke, but it's not a joke. The welcome tax, but it's not a welcome tax.
Yeah, and really, I think to his family name to represent how it feels, there should have been, glutes in his name, or maybe a more cruder word for glutes in his name, because it is such a kick in the pants of a tax. Basically, you buy a house and they go, well, welcome, you have to pay your welcome tax, and it's several $1,000s. So less money than expected. Almost canceled his Maverick on his own. He goes and shops around, and he told me, he's like, look, I shopped around the prices for 1 and 2 year old, like for early 22s Mavericks, late 2022 Mavericks. He's like, I think I'm going to make money, or at least I think I can drive this for free. And I was like, and he's like, what do you think? I was like, I can't promise the future. I don't have a crystal ball, but right now, that's the case. So even though interest rates have gotten too expensive, his conclusion was, I'm gonna take it. And if I can't afford it in 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 months, 12 months, if there's ever a time where I go, you know what, I can't handle the payment. He's like, I've got my 10-year-old vehicle. I'll just sell the Maverick and I'll make do with the 10-year-old vehicle. And then I gave him a little advice about fixing up under warranty, because he has a European vehicle that's still under warranty. And sorry, it's not 10 years old. It's 8 years old, and for somehow it's still under warranty. And I think there must have been a class action lawsuit that actually won on this one. The manufacturer is feeling pretty responsible for the rust on the vehicle, which is kind of ridiculous that a Volkswagen would still have rust on it. And I've got other friends. I've got a lawyer friend who had a Volkswagen, and that way back in the day, he pushed to get his rust repaired on it. But I said, hey, get the rust fixed on the vehicle, and then you've got a vehicle that's going to sell for so much more, because a little bit of rust all over a vehicle kind of looks like a $4,000 or $5,000 repair. And that's important to consider when buying a vehicle. You look at Honda Civics, and when you see a lot of the Honda Civics in our area with requiring body paint work on every single panel, it's an $8,000 job. So that's, for me, a huge reason to not buy a Honda Civic if I were the type to keep vehicles, let's say, 7, 8 years, because I don't want to run the risk having a vehicle that's worth absolutely nothing because it requires $8,000 in repairs. So hybrid gets canceled. So let's cover this. What happens to canceled vehicles? I think we've adequately covered. I don't understand why people would cancel some models, but the real reasons people cancel is, well, people have waited for the really popular models. Anything hybrid these days starts at about a 1-year wait. Kia, Hyundai, 2 to 3 years. Toyota, 2 to 4 years. This is just across the board, and this is just what's going on because of the whole battery situation. You can actually get a Ford F-150 Lightning if you order certain models relatively quick, and other models not quick at all. We'll cover that coming up in a bit on this live. So we're doing this live, folks. If you're watching this not on a Monday night, you're watching our cut up mini episode. So people cancel because, well, things change over a year and a half. Sometimes people buy a boat or a house or both in the meantime. Sometimes people go to refinance their mortgage and they're at 1.6 or 7% previously with, let's say, a $1,600 payment. Now, if you have to refinance because your 5-year contract is up and you're at 7.5%, well, it's probably going to look like a payment of more around $3,600. It's like, wow, $2,000 more on the payment. Now, I'm just quickly doing this off the top of my head. It might not be exactly that, and I'm not sure if I want to ask Marie to kindly look up an interest payment calculator, because normally that's my thing, so I don't know if she'll find it within 30 seconds as I would. But anyone who's out there
Not sure if I
that
will
knows
do it.
one of these house mortgage interest payment calculators wants to do it up, you could try it out. Put in a standard mortgage amount of 350 or 400,000, put it in at 1.5% over 25 years, and look what that's going to give for a payment. Then try it out when you hit that at 7.5%. It's gonna be a whole lot more. So that's another reason people aren't taking vehicles. Things change. Sometimes people, they don't pass for credit when the vehicle comes in. And other times, people's older vehicle just broke down and they had to buy a vehicle right meow. And that's just how, they had to deal with the facts, and they had to pick up a vehicle when maybe they would have been a lot better off getting their highly anticipated, highly waited for vehicle. So basically, if you're looking at vehicles right now where dealerships have zero available and you have to order, a lot of people go, I have to order? No, thank you. I'll go find something that I have all sorts of colors to pick from, all sorts of different powertrain and trims to pick from, and I'm going to not just shop a vehicle, I'm mostly just going to shop a rebate. A lot of people don't shop for a vehicle. So many buyers just shop for a price. They only look at how much rebate are you giving me? Oh, you're only giving me this much rebate? They go off to the next manufacturer and walk into a dealer. How much rebate am I getting? Guess what? When you shop based on rebate, what do you end up buying? You buy a rebate, not a vehicle. Ford Bronco, zero rebate, amazing resale. Ford Maverick, zero rebate, amazing resale. Toyota RAV4 Prime, zero rebate. 3 to 4 year wait unless you're in a region that absolutely despises anything with a battery in it. There's some regions you might actually pick one up right away, probably a canceled order. We'll get to that because that's important to talk about when we're talking about cancellations.
And that's why they have a good resale value, because people like it. You need to wait.
People want them.
Yeah, it goes with the popularity.
Yeah, thank you for wrapping that up really well for me.
Thank you.
Because that's exactly it. If there's a long line waiting for something,
the resale will be
it means it's probably good. It means there's a whole lot of people saying, I'm willing to deal with this huge inconvenience because this restaurant, this ice cream joint, this vehicle is so incredible, I'm willing to wait outside in 35-degree weather to get my ice cream, or to get into this restaurant, or to get this Ford Maverick or Ford Bronco. Well, amazing resale. What I do worry about is when you do have every single color available, every single trim available. There, you've got a red flag to say, watch out.
We'll change the game.
This could have horrible resale value. Arcubo, thank you very much. I appreciate you asking questions, and we love giving advice here. We're insiders. Marie used to work in the financial department at a dealership, and now she's off into a different aspect, but still in the automobile world as well, automobile and houses.
Yeah, not so far.
Not that far off. And I've been, you could say, an insider for, the last 10 years, and I've been automotive passionate for basically my whole life. So what gets canceled? Everything gets canceled. Just because there's canceled models on a lot doesn't mean you should go, oh, someone didn't want that. And that's human. That's a normal human reaction. Very common human reaction is, someone wants that, I want it. Oh, but it's not available right now? Well, never mind. I'm offended. I'm bothered. It's an inconvenience. I'm walking away. You got to fight that. If there's a long waiting list for it in the automobile world, that means it's a great purchase. You're going to have great resale. However, the brain's going to tell you otherwise. The brain's going to tell you, oh, it's a canceled order. People are canceling this. Oh, it must mean there's something wrong with it. It's bad. Folks, this isn't, clothes. It's not clothes that maybe someone said no to because there's a hole in it or a funky smell. And even then, the rebate's good with clothes. Check it over. Automobiles, it's different. People are canceling these because of a multitude of reasons that we already covered, and I won't go through again. But, that's why things are getting canceled. They're getting canceled because people's plans change. Lives change, and sometimes people just make weird, automotive decisions. I think getting a Sportage instead of a hybrid Maverick is really weird, but different strokes for different folks. You know, some people, and you know, I don't ever base what I think on what other people think. I try to look at data and my own experience, because really, are you really going to listen to what other people think when how many times have you been out driving your vehicle and there's a bicycle lane? And how many bicycles use the bicycle lane? They usually drive outside of the bicycle lane. Would it be a good idea to follow those unbelievably intelligent people?
A rant will follow.
What about the fact that so many people go to the gym and the majority of the time don't wash their hands after going to the bathroom? Do you really want to follow what those people are doing and base your decisions based on those people? Or how about the people that don't use a blinker even when they're going to go from your lane and do a U-turn where there's like, it's just the main road and you're right behind them and there's traffic all over and they didn't use a blinker? Anyways, appeal to the majority is unfortunate. It's a logical fallacy, and it's sort of a hole in our brains, a hole that our brains encourage us to fall into. It's something we evolved through evolution.
It's just easy to fall in.
Old survival skill, you know, kind of this survive as a group, die as a group. And more often than not, it must have led to surviving as a group, but it doesn't, just because the majority is doing something doesn't mean it's right. And often people will project if they know of, you know, 2 Mavericks for sale and one's canceled, they get the idea of, oh, well, 50% of them are being canceled. No, 50% of them are not getting canceled. Generally, dealerships are playing between 15 to 30%, and it doesn't matter what make or model we're talking about, as long as the dealership, that manufacturer, is still taking orders. Toyota, pretty much all orders being taken because they don't have any inventory, whereas F-150s, well, there's inventory. So not a whole lot of orders for F-150s because people will often take what's on the lot because what's on the lot looks pretty good. And there are a lot of F-150s for sale. Not because it's a bad choice. You know, normally that would be one red flag that I'd have. But that's just because production, they can build 1 million of those F-150s per year. And, well, that just leads to actual inventory. Because 1 million's a lot. And it's a little bit more than, it's about even with demand.
Yeah, and at the same time, I know some people love to see it before shopping for it, before buying it. So it's great that finally a dealer will have inventory. I remember when I was young, my dad on Sundays goes to dealerships. He did maybe 2 to 3 dealerships sometimes, just to see the window price sticker and see the cars by himself, see what's the price. So yeah, like you said, some people just buy a price. Some people want to see it before buying it.
Biggest rebates are on the biggest losers, folks. The vehicles that depreciate the most have always started off with the biggest rebate. And the vehicles that are the least desirable with the most amount of problems, the least reliable, have the biggest rebates. That's why I'm completely against. It's the biggest red flag. Having the biggest rebate on the market usually means it's the biggest steaming pile of horse crap.
They need to get rid of it.
It's a dumpster fire. They need to do anything they can to get rid of it. Well, and it's not based, I'm not saying just because people don't want it, it means it's bad. I'm saying usually the resale's really bad, and usually the reliability is quite poor. Usually. You gotta, do a little bit of research, read some articles, some good mechanics websites, not necessarily forums, because every single model from every single manufacturer will pop up in a forum being like, hey, we've got this problem, we've got that problem. And it's a problem forum. So you'll only read problems and it'll skew your vision. You'll think, oh, wow, there's only problems here. Yeah, of course, they're a forum to only talk about problems for that model. So yes, every single every single forum comment is going to be, oh, I've got this problem.
Around that, yeah.
Around that. It's the subject of the forum. So you've got to watch, but I really like repairbill.com. I think repairbill.com. It is the one I was looking at. So loving the Bronco that we've got. Lots of 2024 changes. You can catch a lot of our videos recently have been about these fantastic changes. Now I just want to remind people really quickly, this bumper is gone for the Badlands and the Wild Track. This was the modular bumper. Sorry, it's the capable bumper. It's not the modular bumper. It's being replaced by the modular bumper, which is 100% steel with no fog lights. This had fog lights, and it's some plastic with a good amount of steel. Well, we're going all steel. We actually ordered our Wild Track with it because we feel it's better. So there's Marie giving us the no finger because no, it's
No
gone.
more.
No more. So good little acting there. I appreciate your help, honey.
Yeah, this time I don't have the cowboy hat. I'm happy that you switched the picture now.
But these are great vehicles, great resale. People are canceling them just the same. But why are so few orders now coming in? Not necessarily for the Bronco. In some regions, tons of orders, tons and tons and tons of orders for these, just like Lightnings. Some regions, tons of orders. Other regions, there's inventory. So these are regional vehicles. Not every region will appreciate a less fuel economic vehicle that is just go anywhere and unbelievably comfortable. Not every region is going to jump on this. Just like not every region, electric vehicles are very regional. They're unbelievably popular in certain regions and so lukewarm, we'll say, in other regions. But people are ordering less vehicles now because there's alternatives that are available. But be careful that one of the alternatives that you get isn't something that has poor reputation for reliability. And by reliability, I don't mean about, please avoid the whole reliability equals how many recalls there are. Lots of recalls isn't ideal, but lots of recalls does mean you get it fixed for free. The worst, it's taken care of. The worst is manufacturers ignoring the problem, saying it's not their problem, and then you pay for that. So you want to look at overall cost of ownership. So there's a company for that called Vincentric. Vincentric will follow that and they'll look at the vehicles and the models with the lowest cost of ownership. And actually Ford traditionally has always had a low cost of ownership. So I think that's fantastic. That's cost of ownership. That's how much money's coming out of your pocket. So you want a responsible company that pays to make sure that their product is good. And speaking of good products, Ford has listened for the 2024 Ford Bronco. A lot of improvements. You've got, this top now so that the water doesn't just come in when you open up the window. You've got no more base model, but you have the Big Ben, the Black Diamond, the Badlands, all with washable, rubberized floor. Washable means there's a plug, you pull, and you can just hose out the bottom. Don't put it on high pressure. You don't want all that water spraying up. So you've got some really nice changes. And you've got a 12-inch screen in all the models. We'll talk about that at the end of the live because our favorite models kind of change now that you get a 12-inch screen on all models. And this will push Jeep to be better. Already this vehicle was pushing Jeep to be a lot better because probably would have been another decade that Jeep would have offered tiny little, not so well illuminated and not so colorful screens. So we should see the double ribbing does a really good job.
Yeah, it really changed how it feels when it rains. We don't have water coming in the car. Yeah. Now, that's a good change.
Lots of people not ordering because you can even now find Broncos available at certain dealerships. Very regional. In certain regions, you're going to wait a year and a half. And I realize that generally across the states, you're going to wait a year and a half. But if you do find an available new Bronco and you get it and you can get it for inventory, for MSRP, and it's in inventory, jump all over it. But this is a model that I would not be afraid to order and wait for. It's worth it, folks. Now, people were asking us last week, how much is the deposit? Do you want to answer this one?
Yeah, I think I have the good answer, but you will correct me if I'm wrong. It could always depend on the dealership. Sometimes it's the dealership who choose the amount. Am I right?
Yeah, the
Was
dealership,
working like that when I
absolutely.
was at Toyota. So
Absolutely.
yeah, and it always depends on the demand or stuff like that. If it's an order, for sure you will have a deposit because an order, they don't want you to cancel it easily like that. But if you have it in inventory, sometimes it don't ask for it. It could always depend on the rules at the dealership.
And in some regions, it's legally required to refund the
Oh,
deposit. So look up your consumer protection laws for your region, because here, by law, a deposit must be reimbursed. You haven't taken possession of the vehicle. It doesn't matter if you signed a purchase offer. If you haven't taken possession, you can get reimbursed. So if you've been waiting a year and you'd rather not wait any longer and get a vehicle that instead that's going to depreciate a lot and be maybe less reliable, go ahead, cancel your order. But please let your dealership know as soon as possible, because at Ford, if you haven't been assigned a VIN yet and the dealership cancels, they're not going to be in a situation where they go above 30%. So at Ford, if you lose more than 30% of the people you ordered for, you're going to get a whole lot less vehicles. And getting less vehicles is what originally caused dealerships to start charging over MSRP. You know, they were getting half or a third less vehicles. And they're like, oh boy, to balance the books, we got to ask for a market adjustment. And when they're asking for an extra, let's say 5,000, but you're getting an extra 10 on your trade above historical norms, or even sometimes $8,000 more than the year before when your car was a year newer. I saw a lot of that. Well, it didn't seem as bad. But now trade-ins are starting to come down in value. So you definitely want to avoid paying over MSRP, because it's no longer as if you're getting 5, 10, or even 15,000 more for your trade than normal, but then only paying a $5,000 over MSRP, which oddly, a lot of channels 2 years ago were saying, don't buy a vehicle at all. Actually, titles were, it is the worst time to buy a vehicle right now. We'll talk about that. We'll do a really quick little mini episode for 2-3 minutes. Just want to point out here, break up the show quickly and say that is your modular front bumper. So it's all metal, and yes, the sensors can go on it if you get a high package. But now for 2024, there's no longer a high package. Luxury and high package, being called the Hilux package, is all one grouping. For some people, you're going to find the price increases have gone up by a good amount. But for other people, you're going to go, wow, I'm barely paying more for a Big Ben, but I've got a 12-inch screen. Woo! Steal of a deal on models like the Big Ben, the Black Diamond, and the Badlands. Incredible. So many people were taking, let's say, Badlands or Outer Banks because they want to have access to that high package, to have that 12-inch touchscreen in the front. And Ford did something incredible. They've installed a front camera here, and you see it here on this one. We can zoom right in. You got your front camera here, and there's a button that you press, Baja mode, and you're going to see what's going on right in front of you. So incredible tech that the Bronco has brought. Not the most insulated sound, not the vehicle, the best sound deadening material on the market, but plenty good to listen to your music and fine for the winters that we've driven them. So another nice change, you've got code orange, so you can have the Raptor with your orange bead locks, your orange color, but the orange paint is gone for 2024, but they've painted the fenders. So the thing that bothered you the most, and really the only thing that bothered you with this model, Marie, were the non-painted black plastic fenders.
it was because it was looking too big, but now that I see it painted, it's more softer. It's better, I guess.
I saw it in person because our dealership had one, sold at MSRP. And I was like, wow, the plastic huge fenders don't look that bad in person. They looked worse on the computer than they did in
But
person.
I saw it when you had it in the dealership, and no, it was a no for me.
Okay, well, I appreciate
Sorry.
your honesty. And for 2024, we're supposed to be able to get these aftermarket vehicles photo provided by Autoblog. But these are some really nice mags that are going to be an $1,800 option. But those painted fenders are really quite something. But that's just a Raptor. It's a one-off model. But models that have great value, specialty models. So I would never cancel something like a Mach 1. These are going to hold up their value quite well. And actually the Ford Mustang is one of the models on the market that hold the best value overall. So year after year, it seems to be raking in awards for a vehicle that holds the best value. But now we'll see, it'll have to be the car that holds its best value, because right now the Maverick doesn't just hold value, it gains value. So how do you beat that? Well, you can't. The Maverick's going to be one of the best vehicles on the market. So record cancellations, let's just quickly wrap this up. You can get your deposit back in many regions. Check the Consumer Protection Act of your area. That's going to help you get your deposit back. And that covers it, folks. People will cancel good vehicles. They'll cancel bad vehicles. It's just part of life that cancellations happen. And don't think a model is bad just because it's on the lot and it's been canceled. We have record cancellations because we have had record orders. Now order taking is no longer in a record state. We don't have the highest amount of records of orders. We don't have the record setting highest amount of orders ever taken in the history of the automobile world, because that was 2021, 2022, probably a 12-month period between a bit of 21, the halfway point of 21 to the halfway point of 2022. Inventories were just unbelievably low. It's just part of life. Now, we're going to be moving into episode 2. And for episode 2, we had covered that I quickly, just earlier I said I quickly wanted to cover one topic. Do you recall what that was?
I don't remember.
We'll see if it comes back to me, but we'll have to stick with the planned episode 2. So episode 2, don't be fooled by YouTube titles. Marie, you've got a great example of this. I'm going to let you cover it. Start talking about it as I get the photo. Don't be fooled by YouTube titles, because some YouTube titles are very misleading, and then even the article can be misleading. But most people don't read the article. They just read the title and think must be the case.
Yeah, you sent me an article this week and you said, oh, if you can read it before the live. And tonight I was reading it this today at the job during my break lunch. And I was like, what's that article? What's important in it? I'm not sure to understand. So I talked about it to you tonight, and I said the title said that the Bronco is not good for any long road trip. Yeah, and in the article it wasn't that long. They doesn't speak at all about a road trip, a long distance trip. They just said, finally, the Bronco, it's a good vehicle to bring at the, what is that in English? The drive-in, because you can remove the top. I was like, what is that? What's important in it? I was sure he was sending me statistics, stuff
but the title
about
is,
the models that was hard to understand.
But the title is Ford Bronco Badlands Review. For off-road, not road trips. So they're saying it's not good for road trips.
They didn't speak about the off-road at all. Not road trip. Just said, "Oh, go in the drive-in with that car. It's nice. We can remove the top." So, yeah, the title sometimes doesn't match. Yeah, it's catchy.
But unfortunately, a lot of people will say, "Oh, well, in that case, I actually had someone at the gym, and the photos I'm going to show you." They own this Jeep. They bought this Jeep, but they fell for the YouTube titles like this one. This wasn't out yet, but they said that they didn't buy a Bronco because, basically they're on YouTube and they're like, oh, well, everybody says appeal to majority. Unfortunately, YouTube, with all these wild and wacky titles, has people create even an incorrect appeal to majority, because your brain averages out those titles. They're all super negative and sometimes way off. This isn't the case. We'll talk about that in a moment. But They didn't buy the Bronco. They didn't even shop for the Bronco. They said, well, why, I figured, why even go to a dealership when everyone says that, it has problems, that the engine's going to blow. They don't have reliable engines. Valve trains on low 50s, 50 or 53 engines blew. Ford bought a brand new vehicle. This isn't a 1999 Porsche, 911 Porsche. You're not going to the dealer as an 82-year-old being told you abused the vehicle too much, so you're at 15,000 miles, but you have to pay the engine yourself. This is Ford. Ford's great for recalls and taking care of their clients. So they're now in awe of my Bronco, and they're not just doing this to be polite. I parked beside them to say, hey, I parked beside you so you could see the difference in color.
Look, I'm bigger.
No, I said it's to show you how beautiful your color is. It's similar to mine. You've got a great Jeep there with its plug-in option, and I love the idea of having a plug-in SUV. And Bronco's not plugged in. This is going to help Ford encourage to be plug-in, and I don't think she made the world's worst decision. I think on the long term, the Ford Bronco is going to be a lot more reliable long term. No matter what, it's going to be a whole lot more comfortable seating wise and a lot more powerful because this isn't a 392. It's, mind you, the 4XE plug-in engine has a ton of torque, but you're getting it up at 4,000 RPM. So I love the Bronco. You just barely touch the pedal. You're at 2,000 RPM and you've got instant torque coming right on. I love this engine. But to wrap up this story, she didn't buy a Bronco. She didn't even shop a Bronco because the average of all the titles on YouTube about the Bronco is that this is going to break. It's impossible to get. And I was like, okay. Well, I've had two. I haven't had any. I don't know anyone in my real world that has had an engine problem. I know a lot of people outside of the real world on internet land that haven't had problems. And I know that the 2.7 liter has been sold in the hundreds of thousands of models, and there have been very few issues. It's a great engine. Didn't even go shop it because of, well, the appeal to the majority. And the majority of YouTube titles, you don't want to be fooled with them. Hence why once in a while I've got a thumbnail, and right on the thumbnail, the image, it says, don't be fooled. It's a major theme of this channel. So anyways, she's awestruck. She told me size matters. She wants the big one. And she's talking about the Bronco. And she regrets not having shopped the Bronco. Because I was like, oh, actually, the engine's really good. That was just some bad valves, a bad batch of valves that were being outsourced temporarily. And they don't actually have issues. The engine is really reliable. And they are available. And they're available at MSRP. I've got 3. How long have you had your Jeep? And she's like, a few weeks. And I was like, okay, well, you can't trade your Jeep after a few weeks. Jeep's offering big rebates because even for new Jeeps, they're having trouble getting them off the lots. But Jeeps do have generally, historically, had good resale, very good resale. But still, a Jeep that's only 3-4 weeks old, you're going to lose on the trade-in. So she wants the big one. She regrets not having shopped and bought a Bronco. And I agree with her. I still prefer the 2.7 liter V6 from Ford more so than the plug-in Jeep. I want the size. I want the comfort. We've driven these things down to Florida twice. We did the whole panhandle. We went into the Keys. Hey, at one point, we drove for, 22 hours straight? We drove from Quebec, Canada to St. Augustine.
24,
with a 45-minute, 1-hour stop because we had to go to the bathroom. And we cheated. We had a quick little nap. But other than a 45-minute nap, we drove for 22 hours straight.
Yeah.
And we were super comfortable.
Yeah, and even if we stop at the middle to come back, it was 24 hours again.
On the way up.
And doing all the circle around the Florida too, I guess. So it was like driving 3 days in a row in the car. So it's a nice test drive.
Now, my brother, Marine Vet, I'm happy you're here tonight. You're here every night, so thank you so much. It's very generous of you to give us your time and your incredible experience and feedback. And he had a highly modified Jeep, and he says, as a former owner of a highly modified Jeep, he says the Bronco is incredible. I think he's preferring the Bronco, just like the lady at the gym who is, saying she wishes she would not have followed those YouTube titles. Now, unfortunately, I have to have, my title tonight was record cancellations with pictures of Ford, which can mean Ford, they might not be thrilled with that kind of thumbnail. And I'd understand, but I'd also postulate that you need to catch flies. Well, how do you catch flies? People who are like, oh, I'm not going to buy a Bronco because of everyone saying the engines are bad, everyone saying they're not available, and everyone saying they're way over MSRP, and just not to get one in that, titles by certain YouTubers that are like, Ford needs to go bankrupt. Those type of titles. They get the idea that, they're just going to have a horrible experience, and that's possibly the case at every single manufacturer's dealer. Just like you might have the best shopping experience. People who buy with me often tell me, well, that was a lot of fun. Thank you. And they thank me for the fun that they had. Now, of course, that's always, any business relationship is a two-way street. So if someone comes in, the more positive someone comes in, the more positive I can be and the more fun I can have. If someone comes in yelling and screaming, well, probably going to smile less and tell a few less jokes. But my point is, you need to shop the model, you need to shop the dealership, because not every dealership is going to give the same experience.
That's true.
But, my dealership has been doing these at MSRP, and that's completely against what you would think going through YouTube world. What you think you'll get, this person missed out on buying one of these or even shopping one of these because of that. So I want to catch those people. And how do you catch those people? Well, you catch them with crap titles. You catch flies with crap titles. But then, I can share the right information and make sure people don't get fooled. And yeah, you could have a horrible experience buying a Bronco, but shop the dealer. Look at the dealer reviews, the Google reviews. If there's a good amount of really negative dealer reviews on Google, we'll avoid. And do realize that even, out of 1,000 shoppers, it's like the population in a society. You'll have some people that just are always mentally unwell, and no matter what, they're going to be unhappy, and there's just nothing you can do about it. Well, that's just part of life. So you need to sort of look at the majority of the reviews and look at what the majority of the people are saying. And yes, that is a bit of an appeal to majority, but what other data can you collect from dealership experience? So I think that's how I would do it.
Well said.
Now, for don't be fooled in regards to YouTube titles, and don't be fooled on the Ford Bronco, whether it's a 2023 or a 2024, you can get these at MSRP. Your order might not take 2 years. Our last order, this one here, a Wild Track, took 3.5 months. And yes,
It was surprising.
dealer allotment. From what I've said from day one, shop your dealer, ask. The big question to ask them is, how many people do you have on your waiting list for X model? So for the Bronco, you ask, oh, for the Bronco, how many do you think you'll get this year? Oh, you think you're going to get 10. Cool. So how many do you already have on order? If they say 25, you've got yourself a long wait. If they say 3, next question you want to ask is, well, if I order, will you sign my purchase order or lease, my purchase offer or lease offer? And will you sign my build sheet? And if they say yes, well, that means the price you see is the price you're going to get. And then you've got great. Then you've done the first 2 initial important questions, and then you can enjoy and relax and ask questions and have fun with the experience.
And just wait for it.
And just wait for it.
Yeah.
Alrighty. So, next episode.
Oh, just before you go
I'd
to
love-
this episode,
Fantastic.
I have a question. It's from Tom Dinder, sorry. We spoke
Howdy,
about
Tom.
the flare fender just before. He wants to know if it's paintable now on the 2024. Do you have to get them painted the same color of the vehicle, or you can choose your color?
If we're talking, now you can't for your models like the Wild Track, there's no base model anymore, but from Big Ben all the way to Wild Track, you're getting unpainted fenders unless you get the Outer Banks non-Sasquatch. The Outer Banks non-Sasquatch is the model you'll get where the fenders are painted And your mirrors are painted. Keep in mind, your fenders are smaller than your Sasquatch. So if you're going to upgrade, it's not, we call it an upgrade, but are bigger tires really an upgrade? They are if you really like them, but they're not necessarily an upgrade. Don't feel like you got to do that. But if you do put wider tires on, they're going to stick out and they're going to shoot rocks. So then you're definitely going to want some whatever companies, mud guards, mud flaps, anti-rock shooters, whatever you want to call them, because remember these tires here do shoot rocks like wild. Yes, I was driving, and when I finally got onto the highway, it must have been a rock I probably picked up in our driveway, and boy did it ever bang up against underneath of the vehicle. So I'm going to undercoat this vehicle, this gorgeous beast. I'm going to undercoat it, and I'm going to find a way to modify those mud flaps that we have, because I'm not going to pay anyone $600 or $700 just for the mud flaps to go on the Sasquatch model. Ford has the WeatherTech, super affordable mud flaps for all models, but the Sasquatch. But we'll work them out.
But can you paint the fender flares the color you want, or is the same color as the car?
No. Once you have them, you could paint them the color you want. If you go with the Outer Banks, they are the color of the vehicle 100% of the time.
They came from Ford with the same color. That's right.
Yes, and if you were talking about the Raptor, the Raptor, let's check it out here. The green. Now, would you say that's green or would you say that's black?
None of them. It's brown. You didn't see the color right.
I think they're always painted black. I think that's the sun hitting them, but I could be wrong.
Like the color
it looks
of
green.
The Bronco.
Okay. Well, because Ford offered these two colors as photos, actually there's a photo of a blue, but I've got that in a different episode. Well, the Raptor, I'd say good luck even getting one. They're mostly sold out at every dealership with a long waiting list that's going to kick you back for years. So if you're actually in line to get your 2024 Raptor, check out the photos that have been going on. There's a photo of a blue one, and I think for the photo of the blue one, it was body color, but this is going to affect very, very few of our actual watchers. Pretty rare vehicle. Now, Ford Bronco.
Yeah.
Unbelievably comfortable seating and absolutely fantastic off-road. And we will actually talk about that, even though it's not the title. We covered what's in the title of this episode, but we went to Bronco off-rodeo. We were driving those 2021s. Now the 2023s already, your handbrake has been corrected. You don't pull up on it anymore because some people were ripping them off. That happened at Texas off-rodeo, and that was costly. Well, to avoid that problem, we now press down on our brake controllers. So Ford's doing a lot of little add-ons, corrections, modifications to make sure. Now, Marine Vet is saying that IAG mud flaps are a good option, kind of painful install on the rear, but they're holding up well. Thank you very much, Marine Vet, for that excellent advice. Now, and I take Marine Vet's word on it. He knows what he's talking about. So you've got your colors here. It's nice. You go to Bronco off-rodeo, and it really helps you know if you picked the right color. And I guess some of these were 23s because you drove a green Bronco, right? So that means it's not a 21. Green was not a 21 color.
He said, I'm not sure about that information. I don't want to say something wrong.
Yeah, order guides, they're accessible. I think green was available for 22.
Yeah, 22,
and
I guess, because they said on the lot that they still had a lot of 2021 and 2022s. It wasn't that recent. Yeah.
Beautiful experience in the New Hampshire Bronco off-rodeo. Got to take the vehicle up often on 3 wheels. So that was that's you driving right now. You found that quite a bit of fun. If you slide your head over, they'll see the wheel up in the air. So you've got your wheel up in the air there. So yeah, no, we had a really great time. It was a good experience.
We had so much fun. We had sometimes it slid, and we have a great feeling.
Yeah, sliding off the rocks. Yeah, got a little adrenaline pumping into the system.
Yeah, it was fun.
So at first, no, it goes up. If you only have a half-day experience, because let's say you leave at the half-day, or, our first time we went, it was a half-day experience. And the thing is, the first half of the day, they're kind of testing out the group. and seeing where they can actually take you. So things were, and they don't want to scare people off right away and have people say, I'm out of here after the first course. So the skill increases as time goes on. So just keep that in mind when you are at the Bronco Off-Rodeo. We highly recommend you do the full day experience, because the afternoon, if you've got a good group, the afternoon can be quite a bit of fun. Now, I think talking about record cancellations has been really an important topic to me. Oops, you got the dog playing with the laptop there. It's been an important topic to me because it's going to lead into episode 3. You'll get to edit that out, so that's fun for you. So episode 3, we're going to be talking about really what's going on. It's pretty wild. So I've got a photo here that helps sum it up a little, all in one shot. So from the 1970s, and actually I've got some notes going back to the 1960s, but things have become so unbelievably unaffordable. So let's talk about that. Episode 3. So you want to mark the time? Because that's when episode 3 starts.
I already marked it.
Episode 3, we're going to be talking about this. It's got to change. Something has to change. Prices on everything are out of control. Vehicles like the Ford Maverick, with their incredible fuel economy and low price, comparatively speaking, are so unbelievably important at times like this. Because let's look at the real story. What's really going on? A lot of people are going to tell you that, hey, it's not bad. Inflation and income have actually gone up together. They match. So we're all fine, right? Are we all fine? We're just not working as hard as our grandparents were. And that's just not the case. And it's not true. A lot of people are struggling. And heck, look at us. I've got 2 jobs. I've got 2 jobs to make everything work out. Inflation has risen by a factor of 10 from the 1960s. And income. People's pays have also increased by a factor of 10 from the 1960s. Now, if we go from 1970 versus 2023, here's the real problem. You've got housing. Housing has gone up. Your average house cost in 1970, $15,000. It's gone up 29 times. That's not the inflation and income factor matching of times 10. It's 29 times more expensive. From the 1960s, it's 35 times more, your home. So $15K in the 1970s, $436K now. So that's wild. Rent has gone up 20 times, so $108 a month back in the 1970s. In 1970, $2,000 a month now is your average. Yes, some regions it's $5,000, other regions it's $1,000. We're talking about averages here. Cost of education, $500, now $11,000, from 1970 to 2023. So it's gone up 20 times, while incomes have only gone up 10 times. Yes, inflation has gone up 10 times, so incomes do match inflation, but your dollar is going less far. This is why in the 1970s you could have 1 working parent. Now you need to have 2 working parents. There's issues with that, real issues. Gas, 36 cents a gallon, now $3.80 on average. Gas has followed inflation. Gas has also followed incomes. So gas, which often a lot of are complaining, goes towards gas. People, when gas gets more than inflation, people are often ready to take arms in regards to gas prices. But the problem is that's not the real issue. There's so many other bigger issues. Even if gas goes up to $5 a gallon, it still isn't destroying our buying power as much as housing and groceries. And we need a shelter. We need housing. We need food. We die without both. At least in Canada we do, because polar bears will eat you. No, the cold will freeze you out. So 3.5 kids being born back in the day in 1970, 1.9 now. So that is an issue. I want to talk about it for just a moment. I guess it is, we'll call it today's rants. We'll put a nice picture. Let's try not nothing that'll make me too happy because I'll actually get off the rant. But something that costs me a lot, but I love. Inflation is taking its toll, folks. Since 1990 even, inflation puts us at 2.3 times. Meanwhile, salaries needed to have risen also by a factor of 2.3. However, everything, and that's not an issue. Our salaries are following, but schooling's gone up. Housing's gone up. Food have all gone up by much higher multiples. In 1990, a $100,000 job, to match inflation, you now need to make $230,000. We remember growing up in the 90s. Mm-hmm. I was a teenager in the 90s, I guess, maybe somewhere around there. Anyways, late 90s, yes, I was a teenager, and I remember, if you had a parent making $100,000 a year, it was like, wow,
he was rich.
He was rich. Even if your parents together were making $100,000 a year, if you're $100,000 a year,
that was a ton of money.
Income family, it was a ton of money. You had, a cottage. You had a big old house or even a small mansion, and that's just the way it was because your dollar went so much further, because now $230,000 a year as total family income, you're not living nearly as well. And what families have $230,000 a year income?
That's a big amount.
I thought, corporations, moving into, I always knew corporations moving into buying single family homes would cause prices to go up. It's actually, in my opinion, and this is an opinion, I don't have any proof of it, but I would think if I wanted to destabilize an enemy country or just destabilize another economy so my economy does better, and I was, ruling elite, I'd be very happy to even have people carry fake money, have money that's not actually theirs, and have them buy up real estate in other countries, just to raise up the prices. And of course, that real estate goes up in value. So, in like stocks, if there's a lot of people trying to buy the stocks, the values go up, and then you can have them go way up, sell out, and then when they crash, have a huge laugh when people are holding, some people are holding multiple homes and renting them out because they jumped on the bandwagon. But Winston won't stop licking me, and it's a bit of a problem. This is why Marie's moving around quite a bit. So, you look at the cost of living, schooling costing so much more, housing costing so much more, and both parents having to work just to get by. This is why vehicles like the Maverick are so important. It's why I've talked about the Maverick. I've made 300 videos on the Ford Maverick alone, because I think it's what a lot of people really need to focus on getting: a reliable vehicle that they can buy now and either switch every 4 or 5 years or keep for 15, 20 years, but a vehicle that's going to be very reasonable. And that's what we need right now. So it's causing, all this price increase is causing families to become a lot smaller. Both parents are working. So what happens? The kids don't get educated on family values. Parents often don't have the time. You both work, you're serving someone else, you're currently burnt out. So is the school system going to teach kids about running their own enterprise, doing their own taxes, tax credits, saving for retirement, the stock market? No, the school system teaches you how to be either a good soldier or a good factory worker. This is why the schools have bells, and it's all about being at places on time and learning often very unimportant, useless life. You can't even call them life skills, because, they're teaching you the periodic table. That's only important if you're going to become a chemist. You can learn the periodic table if you want to go into chemistry. Why isn't the school system teaching us things like giving us ample history classes and business and economics classes? Well, I'll tell you, the system doesn't want you to learn about history, because then you'll learn that throughout history, people are there to serve the ruling class. And just like today, our school system is there to train us to be good little workers. And that's what it comes down to. And I don't mind being a good little worker. I'm happy being a good worker, a good soldier.
And they don't want you to know in history that rebellion has changed a lot of things.
Yeah. The only time things change is when you group together and you say, we're not going to take this anymore. But when you look at it, I think it's sad when you look back you look back into history, and within the feudal system, peasants had more free time. Generally, peasants would wake up with the sun, but only work for 4 to 6 hours a day. And they had a lot of holidays, a lot of religious holidays. They had 150 some odd holidays in a year, and they worked about 4 to 6 hours a day. Because once you've done some farm work and you've raked around and you've pulled the weeds, well, there's no more weeds to pull. The cows, the 2-3 cows you have, they're milked. Well, when there's nothing left to do in the day, well, then you drink beer all afternoon. Peasants drank a lot of beer, incredible amounts of beer, but it wasn't as high percentage as it is today. It was more around, 1 to 3% beer. But that's what they're drinking all day long, because water wasn't always deemed as the safest option. But quite frankly, I think they're having more fun than us being buzzed off beer all the time. They weren't really all that buzzed at the 1 to 3%. But generally, a life of working 4 hours a day with 150 some odd days off per year and drinking beer every day does seem kind of nice. It seems kind of nice. But on all serious note, I do want to talk about this because mortgage rates right now are going to potentially kick people out of their homes. It's going to destroy families. It's going to create all sorts of stress. And it's having people create smaller families. And I think this is sad because even whether you have 1 or 4 kids, when do you really have time to really, on a daily basis, teach them about ethics and behaving within a society and, behaving in a way that doesn't impact others negatively? Not all that often, and the schools aren't making a huge effort towards it. And I'm sorry, but it's these high interest rates aren't just going to wreck people. They're going to wreck people unfairly because banks are making a lot of money with these interest rates. Because when you think about it, a bank, who provides the first 20% of a home's value? You do. The house you're buying and your cash together need to equal 20%. How much money does the bank need to print, to either invent or have borrowed to them in order to get you the mortgage? 20%. So the whole reason the bank actually has any money whatsoever in regards to your home is because you're promising as a debt slave to pay back over 25 years based on your credit score, your previous behavior as a good worker bee. You're allowing them to invent money, either that they essentially are inventing money. They're helping to create inflation because your 20% is your money and your home's value makes up the 20%. That way, if you don't pay, they're not losing anything. When people start losing their homes, the banks aren't going to lose anything unless everyone loses their home at the same time. They're not going to lose anything because none of it's their money. We pay up year 1, they get their 20%. And with that 20%, they get to invent 80% or borrow 80%. If you lose your home after 5 years or 10 years or 15 years, when these prices go up, when your mortgage goes up with this 7.5% interest rate, what happens? They get to make a ton of money with your home. It's purely in their advantage. And the whole time, when they borrowed you money, it's really your money you're borrowing because you're borrowing on the promise of the quality of your work. It's zero risk for them. And they got to lend out money they wouldn't otherwise have. They got to invent money and put their name on it and say, here's your mortgage from us. We're now going to charge you 7.5% for money we could have never gotten without your promise to continue to be a debt slave and without your record of being a good worker bee. So I think it's ridiculous. The whole mortgage world is a complete scam. And that debt is what's making it so that we work at least often 8 hours a day, often 2 hours a day, and making it so, guess what? We can't properly educate our kids. So we send them off to go get useless skills where they don't teach them about ethics, and they don't teach them and life, and they don't teach them about doing your taxes or running your own enterprise, your own business. They don't teach them to be creative. They discourage creativity. The whole school system is about go learn the periodic table by heart. Go learn multiplication by heart. Because somehow when you grow up, you're not going to have a calculator, and you'll never, you need to memorize multiplication. You need to memorize, unimportant points in history. And there's very little history teaching. But so much in the school system isn't needed, and there's so much that is needed that does not get covered. And these mortgage rates, even if you are surviving, leaves you with very little money for food, which has gone way up in cost. So what are people buying and feeding their families? Well, they're feeding their families all this processed food and sugary food. Sugar, horrible when it comes to processed food and sugar food. To summarize it really quickly, Alzheimer's, diabetes, heart disease. It makes it so that you slave away your whole life for retirement. You don't have time to cook, so it's got to be that microwaved, processed food that's going to make sure that you probably kick the bucket only a few years after your retirement, if you even get to your retirement. Huge boom while you're unhealthy your entire life. Huge boom to the healthcare corporations. So, and a lot of this comes down to these nasty, nasty mortgages that are drawing us of all our money, feeding our kids food that isn't good for their health, doesn't help them learn. Kids on sugar, it's proven studies, kids on sugar are horrible learners. It's the worst thing to feed kids. It gives energy for 2 minutes, and then you're in a crash mode. And a lot of people, we go through our entire lives not questioning anything because we're too tired to question anything, because the food we eat makes us tired and unhealthy and depressed and sluggish. And all this unhappiness and stress and lack of time with our families, what happens? People get a divorce. And that's a whole other financial burden. And that's usually a lot worse for men, because a lot of men end up committing suicide. Men have much, much higher rates of suicide. Outsider Reviews doesn't want me ruining McDonald's for him. I won't talk about that because I don't want to get assassinated. No, I'm just kidding. I won't get assassinated. McDonald's will kill you. They don't have to pay to get you assassinated. They'll kill you over a short period of time anyways. Eating McDonald's every day for a few years. Good luck. Good luck. We'll talk at, someone that the person's grave. So I think it's just awful that a lot of the problems that we have come down to the price of food. And it's horrible when you think candy and sugary foods and processed foods cost a lot of money now. They used to not cost a lot of money because people would say, why am I going to buy that crap when I can just, buy some fruits and vegetables and actual meat? Now that unfortunately there's even a war against meat, causing meat prices to go way up, and I will fight for my steak because it is one of the healthy foods, but it's too bad we don't have people like Henry Ford.
Starts with the mortgage and finish with the steak. That's the rent.
I'm a big Ford guy because I think Henry Ford did something that was incredible for humanity, and he thought there's a huge importance in teaching values, ethics, that everyone has a certain amount of civic virtue. It was required of his employees. You couldn't, working for Henry Ford back in the day, you didn't want to be an alcoholic, for example, and mistreating your family. You had to have a certain amount of care for your family. But more importantly, he invented the weekend. And he invented the weekend because he felt families need to spend time together, and they also need a reason to go around and drive these beautiful machines. So yes, this is
time to off-road.
For the haters that are going to see this episode after and say, hey, I clicked on this and I didn't even get any car content. Here's your freaking car content.
Here's the link.
Henry Ford invented the weekend to help bolster time with families, because he was a genius that knew that driving around in a vehicle is very relaxing. We love it. It's one of our favorite activities. Sunday rides
a lot of people
with
do
the
Sunday
family.
rides.
A lot of people do Sunday rides. But we need to get back. We need more people like Henry Ford fighting for the rights of workers, and whether we want to call them just rights or privileges, or a break from giving your time, energy, and creativity into something. We need time to take care of our families, to make sure we don't end up with divorces, because financial stress ruins most relationships, and the Fed needs to drop interest rates. We didn't create inflation. Who created inflation? Well, there are multiple sources. The banks inventing money to give out mortgages, money they don't have. When, if we all go tomorrow and go to cash out our money all at the same time from the banks tomorrow, the world will end. It'll be the end of the entire banking system, because banks they carry much less cash than they have, but they've lent out 5 times more money than they have. And that's the whole mortgage scheme. The whole mortgage system is a complete scheme. They're borrowing money at a lower rate, or just inventing it. If you go to the very top of the banking system, they're inventing money, creating inflation, because that money does not exist. And it's all on the promise that you will work. And if you don't work and you don't pay back the house, they will still make money, because the potential loss factor, you more than cover it with your original 20% down payment. Or that cost of the house needs to be 20% less than the worth of the house. So if you get a deal, you can put down less cash. So this is ridiculous, because our mere survival comes at the cost of being stressed, overworked, mentally unwell families in many cases, a pandemic of health issues. And that pandemic is getting zero attention. And it comes with diabetes, heart attack, dementia, Alzheimer's, obesity, depression, anxiety, and mental disorders. And who is working to stop this pandemic? Well, certainly not the WHO or the WHO. They're not worried about that at all. I think they're probably happy with populations going down anyways, because at least WEF they publicly say they want population to go down by a factor of 10. I'll give you our sweet fur daughter. Now, I think this is wild, because this is a whole system of wild greed, because after we trade our work to get these mortgages, our mental well-being and our spirituality is all lowered. We're just chasing survival from day to day. And any savings that we do have in this one generation, we're supposed to be the wealthiest generation ever, because we're going to inherit the greatest amount of wealth in the history of mankind. And I believe that's probably the case. We're in the process of inheriting the greatest amount of wealth in the history of mankind. But for many of us, that means it's our parents selling their homes and the money from that being given to us. Mind you, if home values completely crash, because if at any point 30, 40, or 50% of the people can't afford their homes anymore, the prices will crash unbelievably. And who's going to benefit? Corporations, because there's trillions of dollars saved up right now, ready to be spent. Trillions of dollars. These are huge, you can buy into this. You can buy into corporations buying out single family homes and rental units, and turning those single family homes or multi-unit buildings for housing. They turn them into profit creating machines. So the people that hold stocks and don't hold almost all their wealth in homes, which is pretty much the huge majority of retired people, a lot of their wealth is in that home that they own. Well, if they crash that market, corporations are going to buy these if they crash, because 7.5 or higher percent interest rates will push people out of the market. Banks will make a ton of money selling your home at a discount. Even if it's crashed, they're not going to lose any money, and they're going to sell your home to major corporations, which are then going to be essentially renting you back, not necessarily obviously your home, but renting out someone else's home that got their home stolen from them after years of paying into it. And that's going to create a lot of stress, and it's going to create a lot of issues, a lot of health issues. So I wanted to get that off my chest, because that's definitely something that can happen, that could happen if interest rates stay high. Even as it is, there will be some defaults, because the longer these interest rates are high, the higher percentage of people are going to have to refinance their home. And the more it's going to crash the prices of houses. So they'll get to say, oh, well, it's helping inflation go down. Look, the Fed can say we've done a great job. Inflation is now at -2%. We're bringing down the inflation rates that we had. We're saving the world. And then they can, after enough people have defaulted to let a lot of this corporate money come in and buy our single family homes, they can then say, oh, look, we saved you all by lowering interest rates. But the inflation has been caused by governments printing money, which makes what inflation? They say it's because they gave us money when they locked us up at home. I had to give back my money. You had to give back your money. We gave back the money that we got, because when we went back to work, it said, oh, well, now you're working. So when you do your taxes, you're going to pay us back the money. So if a lot of people, a huge percentage of the people that were given free money, printed off money, it's true, that does create inflation. But with us giving back that money and working for it and then giving it back, shouldn't there be little to no inflation? It's because money was printed off for a lot of other reasons. So this whole giving out money like it's candy and thinking that it's going to somehow keep the economy going. Yes, it's going to keep the economy going and make it, the crash, when things do crash, so much worse. It's going to make it very profitable for corporations to take most people's really wealth generating machine, which has been home ownership. The reason we have the richest generation or generations ever is because they're able to buy homes and their values increased. And when people lose their homes and it crashes the market, it's not, even if you're not going to lose, we're not going to lose our home. Unless I lose my job for saying this stuff, but we're not going to lose our home. But if values drop like crazy, so many people are going to be renting, and it's going to ruin the economy. So I just wanted to cover that. Hopefully interest rates go down soon. I don't know how we can all apply pressure for these interest rates to drop, but they need to drop. And I had to get that off my chest. How am I going to stand up in the meantime? I don't have any immediate idea other than to share and talk about the problem. But in the meantime, I'm going to have kids and I'm going to eat meat. I'm going to grow my own vegetables. So I'm messing around with the system, because the World Economic Forum, you can read into it, but they definitely want to bring down the population, and they definitely don't want us eating meat or driving petrol vehicles. And that's a different story for a different day. But countries like Australia and Canada, all our trees and plants and shrubs, they soak up more carbon than we put out as countries. So I don't see where's the issue of me driving my incredible Bronco, which isn't very fuel efficient, but at least it doesn't have a huge battery in it that, if improperly recycled, will destroy acres of land.
And at the same time, it's like we're driving hybrids, because we have a Lightning and we have a Bronco. So when we switch cars each week, it became an hybrid at the end of the day.
Now, I want to applaud Ford Video Guy for living the right life. He went out and helped his wife with the groceries and dinner. And that's what we should do as families.
He's kind.
Put the phones down unless you're watching our show. But in general, put the phones down and talk to one another. Mm-hmm. Spend time together and be strong as families. Remember, prior to World War II, the ideal family setup were family compounds, where you'd have basically the whole families living. You go to Europe and they lived in circles, and you had these shared common areas where you'd play with your cousins. Well, this created very strong family units where you'd have the cousins, the aunts and the uncles, all the cousins, the grandparents, strong family units. And now the family units aren't strong. And as a people, a working class, we're not strong either, because we get distracted by silly things. We get distracted by movies like Barbie, and we get all wild for Barbie and dress up in pink like it's stupid Halloween, which is another stupid distraction from, the real problem, which is that, and, racism, stupid distraction. We shouldn't worry about other people and what they're doing. What we should worry about is what collectively we're getting for the work that we put in and what things cost. Because at the end of the day, we're all wonderful people trying to get through life and be happy. And hopefully we can pass it on to our kids that while we're trying to live happy, healthy lives, we can also pass on to our kids to not be a menace to society. So start by washing your hands when you go to the gym and you've gone to the bathroom, and then you're going to touch all the weights. If you've touched your pee-pee, wash your hands before touching the weights and use your blinker when you drive. And if you have to drive a bicycle, please use the bicycle lane when it's available. Please use the bicycle lane. Be thoughtful of other people. We're all trying to get through our lives, complicated, difficult lives. We're trying to get it through best we can. So Marie's giving me the nudge. We're on to our next episode.
The rant is too long tonight.
Yes, you're right. I thought I wasn't even going to rant tonight. Ahead. You're completely right. So, episode 4, Lightning Pro orders. And really, ordering any Lightning. Now, great news. You can find in certain areas Lightnings that are going to be available as an inventory. But you might want to order your Lightning. And I highly recommend you order your Lightning. And I don't know if we've got any pictures here of a Lightning. Lots and lots of Mavericks. But the right model to order isn't the Pro model. And everyone's going to want the Pro model. But in most regions, the Pro model is going to be, very restricted. And the reason the Pro model has even become available in Canada is so that there can be a rebate, an electric vehicle rebate or a subvention. But anyways, a government rebate, price reduction for the XLT standard battery. And I think the XLT standard battery is actually the model to get, or a Lariat standard range battery. Because when it comes down to it, we wouldn't want to long haul with our Lightning anyways. It's not a great vehicle for attaching 5,000 pounds and trying to go long distances. It's going to be when the majority of Ford dealerships have chargers at them, because the majority, as of January 2024, Ford dealers are going to have chargers available. I believe they're going to be available 24/7, so you'll be able to do a long trip with the Lightning. But I think the great value is going with a standard range battery, XLT, or your Lariat. Because, at least for Canada, the Pro model is only going to be 1% of production. So with 1% of production, and that's the model, the inexpensive model that everyone wants, good luck getting it. But the XLT standard range battery is already an incredible deal because it's less expensive than your Sport 302 XLT, a high package XLT gas engine. I think it's the best model to get. Now, if you need to put a deposit on it, remember, look at your local consumer protection laws. That deposit is likely refundable if ever you change your idea. And please, if you do put in an order, an XLT, locally, we have no XLT standard range batteries available. Why? Because it's the best model. There's also no Pro models, but I wouldn't sit around waiting for that. It could take years to get your Pro model. And the XLT is nonetheless a fantastic value. So I'd say, and that's actually locally an order that shouldn't even take that long. We're not talking about years, we're talking about months. So if I could do it all over again, I would order an XLT standard range battery. Now, speaking of the Lightning F-150, if you're looking at one of these, if you already have one or are looking at one, if you have steering wheel delete, really any option that gets deleted that's under $100, as a general rule, you're going to get it later on. At least that's what I understood. And anything that gets, a $200-$300 rebate, like we got a $350 rebate for not having the scales on our Lightning, meaning we won't know how much weight is in our bed. The truck won't tell us. $350 rebate, we're never going to get that. But I always understood we're going to get later on the heated steering wheel. But I'm going to look into this for everyone because I talked to our head tech, and the head tech was like, oh, I'm not aware. I thought just everything taken off would never be put back on, that it can't be put back on, but that's not the communique that we've been sharing here. It's not what we had been reading on. So I'm going to try to look for proof and have him look into this and try to get back to you with dates. I also want to find out about Blue Cruise. Right now we have Blue Cruise 1.0, but now we're at 1.2 is like potentially exists because it's on the Mach-E. For example, a Mach-E Select comes with 3 months of free trial, just the Select, the lowest priced model, Mach-E. You put your blinker on and the vehicle changes lanes. And even Tesla owners are saying that Blue Cruise is better than the Tesla system. And actually, Blue Cruise is winning awards for currently having the best driverless system. Now with the Tesla, you can actually put in your address and it'll drive from door to door. But while driving from door to door, let's say when you're on the highway, it's going to work less well than Ford's Blue Cruise system. And that's why Ford's Blue Cruise system is winning awards for being the best driverless system. Is it perfect? No. Will it get better? Yes, with over-the-air updates, but will we get, Blue Cruise 1.2 or later on maybe Blue Cruise 1.3, 1.4? I don't know. I asked the head tech and he said he does not know if that's going to be an over-the-air update. Which actually brings us to a new exciting episode, so that's an episode, folks, so stick with us. We're punching through these now. Let's talk about episode 4, the dangers of over-the-air updates on new cars, SUVs, and trucks. Some of these over-the-air updates are very dangerous. Danger. Watch out. So we've got some over-the-air updates that have been occurring. So if you want a little background story to this, you can watch Tim over on SUV and Truck Talk with Tim. Check him out. And he was talking about his brother-in-law. He has a whole episode on this, and I really found it interesting. His brother-in-law was at a concert. Over-the-air update wanted to be done. That's when he was scheduled, and he couldn't change it. So guess what happened? He waited for an hour and a half for the update to be done, could then leave the concert, and then the vehicle was just fried. Took a whole new radio unit. And this is actually turning out to be looking like it's kind of common over on the Colorado, their top of the line model, and I'm sorry, sometimes my memory just goes completely blank because this is something I actually wanted to talk about last week. I don't think I have the photo, but it's the Colorado ZR2 or the Bison. Sorry, I think it's the Bison. And TFL has also had this update that burns out the computer. So what's nice, and we're talking about Blue Cruise at Ford winning awards for being the best driverless system or performing the best, but Tesla can do a lot more, bringing you from address to address and even parking, gets you out of the parking and then gets you to your address that you put in the GPS and parks you. That's pretty incredible. But the system doesn't work as well as Ford. Sometimes it just randomly brakes when there's nothing in front of you on the highway on the Tesla and brakes hard. Our Lightning did that to me only a few times in corners, but since it's been updated, hasn't given me that problem. So Blue Cruise, award winning for the best driverless system. But these over-the-air updates are actually frying some vehicles, so you got to watch out for them. But what's great is the Bronco. I never told you because I didn't want to stress you out, but we're in Florida, and I was packing the vehicle at about 7:30 in the morning, and guess what happened? The vehicle said, we're doing an update, but it offered, would you like to postpone it? And I was able to click yes.
Yes, I remember that we had that option too.
Oh. You've seen it go by before.
In Florida or here.
I wasn't going to show you in Florida. You would have gotten concerned. But I was able to postpone it, and I could have changed the date. But instead, I just didn't think too long. I said, I'll put it for 1 a.m. tonight. We'll definitely be home by 1 a.m. It shouldn't take more than 4 hours.
He loves taking risk.
We'll be back up at 4 in the morning, so at 7 in the morning, so it'll be done by then. So at Ford, a lot of companies, you can't schedule your over-the-air update. And over-the-air updates at all manufacturers. Let's not just pick on GM here with the Colorado. All manufacturers could have an update that render the vehicle undrivable. This is why smart manufacturers don't update all the vehicles at the same time? Because if they do, how are the dealers ever going to fix that? And if you're Tesla, you don't have dealers, and it's not a better system. Tesla's system of no dealers is kind of crap, because your guy driving around in a van to fix your Tesla, there aren't enough guys to go do everyone's vehicle at once if they were to all fry at once. So Tesla must do their updates. They must test a small group at different times and then test a different group, a larger group, also at different times. Ford's definitely not testing. No, not testing, but not doing their, and really the first, let's say 100 clients, they are tested. It's been tested on, vehicles at the factory. But when you do the update with customers, the first customers, you could say, are kind of guinea pigs. Ford does it in small batches at different times, so they're not going to have a problem where everyone's vehicle can't be driven at once.
Everybody cannot go to work. That would be beautiful.
But GM keeps doing this update, and it keeps frying the top of the line, the highest trim Colorado that you can get. So if you're waiting on a Ford Ranger, a Ford Bronco, or a Ford F-150 Lightning, a Mach-E or a Maverick, don't worry about over-the-air updates. Ford tests a very small percentage of the owners at different times at first. So if the first one gets fried and calls Ford and says, hey, something's wrong, well, it's going to get taken to the mechanic, and then they can say, ooh, this update, let's not continue putting it on everyone like a bad medication that hasn't properly been tested. So I want to share that reassuring news with you, but also a bit of bad news, because Tim over at Pickup Truck and SUV Talk, there we go, I said it right, he loves the vehicle, the Colorado, except the top-of-the-line Colorado, the Bison or the ZR2. And I like the ZR2, and I like their Bison that I've seen, at least in photos. But this type of thing makes me weary about having one of the early models. So that's what we've got for over-the-air updates at Ford. If you're a Ford owner, you don't have to worry too much. We've never had an over-the-air update that's caused us problems. It's only fixed our problems. Like when one of our early production Broncos, the touchscreen didn't work. And got the over-the-air update by connecting to our home's internet. So we put in the home internet password into the vehicle. We park the vehicle close to our home, and it just updates overnight. And even in Florida, we got that update overnight, no issues. So very cool stuff. Very, very cool stuff. Now, let's get on to episode 5. All-wheel drive Ford Maverick. What do you do if you want an all-wheel drive hybrid Ford Maverick? Well, it's going to come for 2025. It was in the original planning, so I'm sure it's coming down. The original planning for the Maverick was to create a very affordable vehicle that can basically help almost anyone out. Whether you're 75 years old or 25 years old, it's made to help everyone out. The Ford Maverick, price-wise, it's one of the most fuel-efficient vehicles on the market, and it's the best priced vehicle on the market when you look also at its fuel efficiency and its resale value. This thing, when you calculate inflation into the vehicle, is less than an original Ford Model T. And the Ford Model T helped bring workers and people to their jobs, make money, and also, well, Henry Ford invented the weekend so that families could get out, spend time together, and also have a reason to buy a vehicle. So now a lot of us work further away from work, and our jobs are further away from our homes, and we need a vehicle just to bring us to work. And I'm not for the idea of having some great joy. I think it was a sick joke, certain politician, she was saying that we'll all be, happy driving buses because buses will be electric and have USB ports and we'll be able to play on our phones, and won't that be wonderful? No. If you take away my home and you take away my vehicle and I have to rent my ride via a bus and to get to work, just to go work for someone else's joy, no, and take my home away, which is my source of generating wealth, I'm not going to be happy. So I thought it was a sick, out-of-touch joke. So Camilla missed on that one. So Lily had to go kick the can because if that happens, that'll be the only game we'll be able to, and toy we'll be able to afford for her. So the all-wheel drive is a fantastic vehicle, but I still recommend you order one right now. And if you currently have an order, keep your order. So if you want an all-wheel drive hybrid, don't wait to order for 2025 order banks, because they're kind of not going to be available. I think there'll be maybe some carryover 2024 hybrid orders and some very eager people that are going to be right on day one ordering up an all-wheel drive hybrid Maverick. This thing is going to be unbelievably popular. This is going to reignite popularity, because I can tell you, year one at my dealer, we didn't have day one all sorts of Maverick orders. They happened over several months. It didn't sell out super quick. But in the States, 2023 Ford Maverick orders sold out in 5 days. There's going to be quite possibly some carryover front wheel drive hybrid orders. I think all the EcoBoost, if you've ordered an EcoBoost, you're getting a 2024 Ford Maverick EcoBoost. But if you are wanting an all-wheel drive hybrid, put in your order now. Be one of those people that converts over. Make sure you get a signed build order. Make sure you get a confirmed, signed by them, purchase order or lease, purchase offer or lease offer. Get their signature on it to lock in that price in case you get a 2023. But if you don't want a 2023 because it's front wheel drive, here's the trick. Add all the things I've been telling you not to add. Add protective paint. Add the clear protective wrap. Throw on, why not? Throw in a bed liner. Add everything.
All the plastic stuff.
Add everything. And also tell your dealer, I'm adding everything because really I want to be first in line for 2025. So add all those things. Add the mud flap, which is going to slow down your order likely. Add the bed liner. Luxury package shouldn't be much of an issue slowing things down, but putting in a hybrid order will slow things down. Now, if you put in an EcoBoost order and you add everything, it probably almost certainly will get built anyways, but as a very late EcoBoost order. So watch out. Order an EcoBoost. If you want an EcoBoost, I think the 2-liter turbo is a fantastic powertrain. I love the 250 horsepower and 280 pound-feet of torque. For the weight of the vehicle, roughly 3,700 pounds, it's an absolute blast to drive. So there's your tricks for getting a 2025 all-wheel drive hybrid Ford Maverick. Order one up now. Take it all dress, the full menu, that clear wrap, and that roll up, let's say a roll up tonneau cover with mud flaps. Maybe throw on some deflectors in there, and it'll be real hard to make. But also mention it to your dealership in case they can put in an order code. That'll make sure it doesn't get created this year. You can see if they've got a capability of throwing on a priority code to make sure it does not get built. Now, that covers that. Let's cover our last episode 6. When is the best time of year to buy? When should you buy a vehicle? Because we've got articles going back from 2 years ago, even saying it was the worst time to buy. Do not buy right now. And I can't believe I didn't get the screenshot of this because I find it pretty entertaining. Because, well, since then, 2 years ago, when we look back, was an incredible time to buy. And that's why 2 years ago, I wasn't telling you all to not buy. I was saying, hey, prices have gone up. And, a year ago, I was also saying prices have gone up some. But your trades are worth so much more. So the point I was making is that if your trade is worth, let's say you've got a $30,000 trade, and it's worth 40% more than it normally would. It's worth $10,000, $12,000 more than it normally would. But the price on a new, whatever you're interested in, had gone up $2,000 or $3,000. I was making the point, this isn't bad. Even if it's gone up $5,000 or $8,000. You're still getting way more for your trade than you normally would. You're still getting a good deal. And in 2021 and 2022, a lot of people were saying in early 2022, don't buy. Prices just went up. I remember F-150 had gone up $2,000 and we were being told not to buy when the interest rate was at 0%. I was like, no, buy now. So that's a bit of don't be fooled when it comes to the internet, because it's the biggest websites and some of my favorite YouTube automobile journalists and auto news covers got that one wrong. They're saying do not buy, and actually I can probably just easily find it on the internet, but they're saying don't buy 2 years ago. Do not buy. I think 1 million people saw the video. Hopefully 1 million people didn't listen. So I'll check that out, because interest rates were low and prices did increase, but they had to increase. And that was my point. They had to increase because inflation. I was saying, look, if the F-150, that's back then, it was 60,000 Canadian. I said it's gone up 2,500. That's a small percentage compared to inflation at 7%. So let's see here. Worse time to buy. So one of my favorite channels. It's the worst time in history to buy an affordable used car. Okay, well, yes, used car prices are high and they could crash. So that's good advice. I like that. Worst time to buy a car 1 year ago. Here's why now is the worst time in history to buy a car. It's a whole lot better than it is now. And that's what I was trying to say. I didn't want anyone getting fooled. 2 years ago was one of the best times. It was 2 years ago was a little worse to buy than what it was the year before. But when you see inflation going up, when you hear them talking about increasing interest rates, you got to kind of look at the whole bigger picture of when you buy a house or when you buy a car. When everyone else, it's just like the stock market. When everyone's telling you to sell, it's probably a good time to buy. And when the majority, so appeal to, here's a logical fallacy, the appeal to the majority it's often wrong even. Because when people are telling you, generally everyone's saying buy this stock, buy now, usually comes right before a major crash. And when people tell you don't buy right now, sell all your stocks, it's usually an incredible time to buy. And that's why right now, I'm not a financial advisor. I don't give out financial advice, but for what I'm personally doing is I'm telling my dog to, cool it. He really wants to play, but I'm actually investing in TMF because I'm expecting the market to have a bit of a crash and that a lot of money is going to pour into these long-term government bonds. And that interest rates are going to drop. They're going to have to drop because we can't sustain these mortgage rates and interest rates of 7.5%. So there's a lot in the last 2 years. A lot of channels were saying it's the worst time to buy in the last 2 years. And I still don't think, this velocity, the worst of all, this one's called the biggest car market crash of our lifetime has begun and auto prices to plummet 88%. Hot garbage dumpster fire. I don't see how that's going to be possible, that prices are going to drop 88%. And if they do, the money that we have as families, the incomes, and the dire situation we would be in, no one would be shopping a vehicle or capable of buying a vehicle. By then, if prices drop by 88%, trust me, we're all renting rides or taking the bus. But it's wild. By the way, I want to give a positive plug, a lot of incredible buying advice on Car Edge, a lot of ways on how to get a deal, how to protect yourself against dealers, red flags. I've also made a video. It's in our playlist. 10 ways to not get, I hope I didn't use the word screw, but basically 10 ways to not get taken advantage of by the dealer. So it's a video. We've got about 36,000 views, I think, on it. And it'd be nice if everyone who's ever going to shop a car would actually watch it, because it's really a 10-step process to make sure you get a good price and that you're buying the right vehicle at the right price at the right dealer. The right dealer is a big one, but Car Edge is really good. They've got episodes like Questions Never Ask, Never Answer When Buying a Car, I don't agree with everything that they say, and I certainly don't agree. They were one of the big proponents 2 years ago saying it's the worst time to buy, and it was actually one of the historically best times to buy because you're getting 43% more for your trade. So what if the price on an F-150 had gone up 2,000? And even at first, when the price of an F-150 had gone up by 10,000 Canadian for 2023, still wasn't a bad time to buy because people were still getting 10, 12,000 more for their trade. Now trade prices have come down, but the new prices, the inventory's gone up because a lot of people people have canceled their orders. And manufacturers can produce so many more cars. So many more cars can be produced. So the result has actually been really positive because we now have inventory that we can pick from. And sales have gone up dramatically. Sales have really gone up. Ford is leading this year actually in sales in the US. They're the number one automaker for sales. And the overall market is selling 15% more vehicles than they were last year. But production has gone up by a good solid 20%, over 20%. So that difference equals inventory. People canceling their orders equals inventory, and inventory equals deals. So it is definitely a better time to buy now than it was 4 months ago, some would say. But trade values have gone down a little, but I'd say now is still a good time to buy a vehicle, but try to shop a model that's got a relatively decent interest rate. Or if the interest rate is high, but the vehicle keeps an incredible value, like the Maverick, doesn't only keep an incredible value, the depreciation isn't low, it appreciates in value. So I have no problem paying 8% interest on a Ford Maverick when I can resell it and make money and sell it for more than what I'm paying for it. But the trick on those vehicles is to make sure you pay MSRP. If you're gonna pay 8% interest, make sure you pay MSRP. And just as a general rule, make sure you pay MSRP. But record cancellations of automobiles has been a blessing because rebates, inventory, it's caused inventory to go up with the factor that car companies are producing many more vehicles, but sales have gone up, inventory's gone up, and rebates have gone up, and trades are still worth historically more than they should, much more than the average, not the 43% increase that they had in summer of 2022, but they are worth more. Because trades are still worth a good amount of money, I'd say now is a good time to buy a vehicle, but hunt. Don't look for necessarily the biggest rebate, but think about resale values. Think, howdy, Derek Soares. Welcome, and thank you very much for joining the live. So think about the resale value of that vehicle you're shopping. Very important factor. Don't just shop the rebate. Don't just look for the model that's got the biggest rebate and the biggest inventory. Inventory could be high because a manufacturer has incredible production on that vehicle, which is the case for the F-150. But the F-150 has traditionally been a really reliable vehicle and has always had great resale. So I think that's a great purchase. And the two models for the F-150 that I think are particularly interesting for resale are the STX model as well as the Tremor model, because the Tremor is a baby Raptor and it drives really well. I've got a guy who's been driving new Fords for I think 15 years now, and he didn't want to test drive a Tremor. And I said, you got to test drive a Tremor. It's a requirement of mine. And he test drove it, and it's been 2 weeks, and he was still telling me, he's like, I have to buy the Tremor. He's like, I can't believe how well it drives. And he's coming from a Lariat, and he's looking at a 401, which is kind of like it's a Tremor Super XLT, you could say, whereas the 402 is a Lariat with Tremor added to it. The 401 is XLT, high package, with Tremor upgrade. So he's just in love with the suspension. So don't forget to test drive your vehicles, folks. Look at the overall cost of ownership, because that's how you're going to save thousands and get a great deal. Now,
having inventory will help you to test drive it.
Having some inventory in all dealers, if you've got a really popular model on your hands, what happens to some of these cancellations? Well, good dealers use them as courtesy vehicles or demonstrator vehicles. and offer road tests with them. So right now we had a few Mavericks get canceled, but the great news is they got to go to become demonstrator and courtesy vehicles. So with a scheduled an appointment, people can drive these vehicles. Now we'll have to leave it for another episode, but we need to do a 2024 Ford Bronco build-in price. So we'll see what week this week I can sit back down in the office and do that as a pre-record show. But I look forward to sharing that all with you, because maybe not Marie, because she's got mom stuff, future mom stuff to take care of, but at least I'll be here to cover the 2024 Ford Bronco build-in price. Thank you so much, everyone, for making it through the whole episode with us. If you made it this far, just go back when you get out of the episode of the live, go back and give us a little finisher as a comment. So not in the live comments, but in the after show comments when this whole episode pops up. In the comment section, write finisher. We'd really appreciate that to let us know who made it to the end. Thank you, everyone. Have a great week. We wish you all wonderful blessings and good health for yourself and your families. Take care, everyone. We, of course, always wish you
more cars and more power. And please like and subscribe. Special thanks to Tom Dinder, who says that in the live. Please like. So thank you so much, Tom. I see it really helped us tonight. Thank you. Bye-bye.